Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Ask Clever Over Coffee, How AI Built This. I am your co-host, John Marino, along with ChatGPT, whose voice is Billie Darkenwald. How you doing?
Hi, good to be here.
So we are excited. We have a great show for you. We think that our next guest, Chloe, is going to give us some great insight into AI and what is happening in marketing and advertising to help everybody who's watching or listening on Spotify, iHeartMedia, Apple Podcasts. ChatGPT, do you have a favorite?
I would say heart radio.
iHeartRadio. Okay. I didn't know that of ChatGPT. Thank you. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into the show and meet Chloe. How you doing, Chloe?
Good. How are you? Happy Monday.
Yes. Thanks for joining us today on our show. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up working in AI?
Sure. Wisconsin born, Minnesota resident. I worked at the Star Tribune for 8 years. Background was primarily in localized media marketing. They built out kind of their digital arm, if you will, on top of, the traditional publishing. From there, moved into the ad tech space. So I'm currently at a company based out of San Francisco. We're remote across the United States. We actually have a lot of our tech team in Southern America. So well spread, but we work primarily in the native space, cutting edge in AI. A lot of what we do is, based in that whole AI space, the tech stack and the way we work, how we're buying our media, how we're optimizing our campaigns. So definitely a swing from the traditional, 155-year-old newspaper publishing company over to the AI space. But it has been great to learn more, about the world that we're living in terms of digital marketing and all things AI. I'm so happy to dig in.
Yeah, you know what I'm excited about is because you've gone from the oldest form of media companies, which would be a newspaper, and now you're working in literally the latest and greatest technology of AI. So I'm super excited to ask you so many questions and learn a lot about what you see happening on the street within regular today companies. Okay, so I hear some background. Do you have some help in your office here today?
I sure do. I don't know if I'm on camera or not, but we got a little intern. Where is she? Oh, can you see her?
Yes.
No. Oh, there she is. Say hi. Big fan of AI. She said that is the wave of my future, Mom.
She'll probably have like the adaptable wearable, and she'll be like, by the time she's like 6 or 7, and she'll be like, Mom, let me talk to AI. I got my chatbot.
Oh yeah. Her generation is, this is just scratching the surface. So.
Yeah, exactly.
She's very invested though. So if you hear some background noise, just my intern.
Love it. Cute.
Awesome. Well, that's the first time we've ever had an intern on the show as well, and certainly never one this young. What is her name?
Evelyn.
Evelyn. Great. All right. So,
Yes.
So happy that Evelyn and Chloe are now part of our show. This is great. We've never had this before. This is a first. So with that said, I appreciate you talking to us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in AI. And, just to, what are some of the projects, and if you could walk us through some of the case studies of different companies that you guys are working with, and what are you seeing as feedback from the clients that you have right now regarding AI?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, so my company inPowered has been in the native space, so native as an advertising channel space for the last 9 years. Whole notion is the idea that, display and disruptive advertising kind of has a bad connotation from the consumer. It's not as powerful as it maybe used to be 10 years ago when people were clicking and, engaging and spending time on site. So the whole notion of the company is really to look at how can we get today's consumer to continue to engage with our partners, our brands, our agencies, partners, et cetera. So the sole, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, like the differentiator is the AI that we bring to the table. So we've been gathering all this post-click engagement data from our partners, our agency partners, via JavaScript. From there, we have this large accumulation of data and helping understand partners, how other partners and their sites, when our tag is on there, how people are engaging once they get there. So how we utilize that in the AI space is then helping understand, okay, those headlines and different image variations, how did they most efficiently get to X? And then also out in the market, we're layering AI to buy media smarter. So instead of being in your traditional platforms or buying directly from publishers, we're essentially layering on our AI through our integration with our different native channel partners. So working smarter in the middle, if you will, and that's really where the AI layer and approach comes.
Got it. So when you were at your traditional media company and then you ended up in inPowered.ai, what was kind of like the biggest light switch for you, basically being at the front door of this, of going and working with clients that, you had to work in a very traditional sense and then coming over here? What did you see as like the biggest difference with you and your clients?
I think there was a lot that I didn't know. We worked, again, to your point, in a traditional sense of, you take out a half-page ad and you can reach, 90% of the market, or, it was just very traditional, I think is the only word I can come up with, right? Very traditional.
Which makes sense.
And not to mention, Search Bean also had kind of a programmatic arm. So they were playing in that digital media buying space, a lot of display. They sold their own native product. So definitely had an understanding of native. But I think this whole approach to what already collected data can do for other brands was very powerful. So, the notion that, we work with financial folks or we work with a brand who is primarily focused on leads. Like, how did we get that campaign to do XYZ based on what we already know? So I think, being able to come to the table and come to market from Empowered with a lot of learnings and truly like our proprietary data and provide that to other agencies, other brands, was something that I wasn't necessarily as familiar in. Like, I had to come into this world and I had to dive right in and, learn all this stuff real fast track. No longer were the quarter-page newspaper ad specs relevant. So it was a lot of quick learning, but it was also really great to be able to, come to the table with a very powerful product and something that, we're continuing to see that brands and agencies are needing based on kind of that evolution of the digital marketing space.
Okay. Interesting. So in 2010, when I started my digital marketing agency, I first was just specialized in social media marketing. And what that meant at the time was Facebook, Instagram just kicked off, and Foursquare. And then we also had Twitter. And so when I started, I would meet with people and these different businesses, all small businesses and some medium-sized companies, mostly B2C, some B2B. And ultimately, the feedback I got when I started out was, is this thing going to stick around? Is social media here to stay? And what have you, And I was like comparing it to like when the internet started, and the same questions from different business owners were like, do we really need a web page? Is this internet thing sticking around? And so, and then fast forward to today. So today, companies are trying to figure out how to be AI prepared. And I get a lot of pushback or feedback about, well, how does our company leverage AI? And what can we do to really make sure that we're automating things? And then, of course, if you're like working in a company, the biggest fear that I've heard is that people are afraid of like losing their jobs. So, where I'm going with this is, my question to you is like, in your company, have you seen like AI replacing jobs, or how are the AI tools that are in your guys' toolbox being used to hit the KPIs of the client's expectations?
Yeah. I mean, I think from maybe like a consensus of just consumers, there's fear of AI. It's like some sort of mythical robotic thing, but like what we're seeing is it's another tool to put in your toolbox. I mean, truly, it is a way for agency partners, media buyers, programmatic buyers, content marketers, content creators. I mean, you name it, that's obviously our love language, but the things that they're already doing day to day, it's helping them do it smarter. It's helping them do it more efficiently. It's helping them, kind of fine tune their craft, if you will. It's helping them understand in real time, like, okay, this audience segment is great. This one is not. This headline is working super well. These 5, maybe are not the best. What did we talk about? So I think, yes, I think there is oftentimes some sort of fear in terms of, if I am writing content for this large brand, like if something else can do it bigger and better and faster and cheaper, is that replacing me? But we have not seen anything like that. And I don't think we will see that anytime soon, because we still need people with brains and hands-on keyboard. I think we leverage AI as a tool and an asset versus a replacement.
So when you guys are putting together a client campaign and you're sitting down with a client, I was checking out the website and it looked like you guys are using AI from everything from like the image side of things of creating ads to the copywriting, clearly on the data mining and management of when the ads are going out on the different platforms, and you're all using the AI and the machine learning to make sure you're just getting the best reach and the best bang for your buck, so to speak. But when you're working on the front end of advertising, what have you seen as the big difference between what AI can do versus when you were at a traditional media company?
Yeah, I mean, I think I alluded to it a bit earlier, but AI is, real time, right? I think when we were placing traditional campaigns, it was like we waited a couple weeks, or we were literally A/B testing, split testing 2 different pieces of creative, and we needed X amount of impressions or clicks or whatever to get us there to kind of make a solid game plan as to if there was a winner, if there wasn't a winner, if this was good, if it was bad. I think what we've seen from an efficiency standpoint is being able to lean into the AI real time. I mean, we're testing teeny tiny volumes of budget out in marketplace, understanding, very quickly, both with the data that is proprietary to Empowered, as well as with what the AI can offer real time to say, okay, these 10 line items are going to kick ass, and the rest of it, maybe we pull back some media dollars. So I think, it's efficiency. It's not wasting that time out in market, trying to understand, wasting those media dollars. I think efficiency is a word we probably use ad nauseum, because that's really what AI is doing for our partners.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know, like, when I was running a recent campaign and we are doing something for the summer and we are doing something where it required bathing suits. And one thing that I learned is that the image really does have an impact on performance for ads. And I'll give you an example. So we had this brunette model in, it was kind of a like earth tone swimsuit. And then we had a blonde with a pink, like a really vibrant pink swimsuit. And kid you not, it like outperformed the other one like 7-1. It was unreal how much more of a response we were getting from the one image over everything else remained the same. And that's where, like, I think the AI piece comes into it, that it, like what you're just saying, that it tests the different elements and different variables so much quicker, and it would easily just push out the one image because they'll see it and recognize it right away that it's just not performing at the same level as, a different image. And that's where I think the edge is in the game for anybody who's spending money on digital advertising, is the edges that you get this real-time feedback and you can make quicker decisions. And the machine is doing most of the heavy lifting for you. You don't even have to worry about knee-jerk reactions. Is that what you've experienced as well?
Yeah, spot on. I mean, I think again, it's not wasting that time. It's also, I mean, we're humans, right? There's like a layer of human error.
Yep.
We only have, 40 hours in a work week. There's only so much we can be paying attention to. I mean, I guess 40 hours, whatever. You guys do you. But I think, again, like to sit and look at, in some of our campaigns, we have thousands of ad variations out for one piece of content because those images, headlines, channels, different targeting. I mean, for for a set of eyeballs to sit and look at 4,000 different line items and slice and dice what's working and what's not. I mean, that's just not fathomable. So I think too, like that's where AI is a tool. AI is a tool for a media buyer, a media planner, anybody who's in the back end kind of pulling those levers and optimizing to go in and say, okay, we're going to let the machine do this because it's much quicker, it's much more efficient, and there's not, that layer of human error, and it's not going to take them 40 hours a week, right? I mean, It's going to help us work faster. It's going to help us get more clients. It's going to help us be more efficient with how we're reporting back to our clients.
Yep.
So I think there's just, again, a lot of winnings in the AI space, and letting the machine kind of do what it does best and letting all that data play together, which is mind blowing for somebody like me who's transferred over from more of a traditional space. That there's just a lot smarter ways of working, I think, when you layer an AI and allow it to kind of do what it was meant to do.
Sure. Well, ChatGPT has the first question for Chloe today, so I'm excited. All right, here we go.
Yeah. Do you see a trend in certain industries wanting AI marketing over others?
In terms of like verticals that we're working in?
Yeah, different, companies, different businesses. Is there a trend in that?
Yeah. I would say, I guess maybe I'll just reiterate the question a bit differently. I would say there are certain verticals that are more hesitant to adopt AI.
All right, give us the juice right here. Tell us who is slow to the game.
Yeah. I think financial and healthcare are very hesitant.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a fear of, HIPAA and data and this fear of these large corporations losing their own is kind of tied back into AI and not having full control. So I would say, although we're getting there, it's much more of an educational sell, I would say, through us and through the agency to the client when they tend to be in financial and healthcare. And I think that's a lot of, again, that personal data, the fear of, not being able to fully control headline images. They have a bunch of fine print. There's a lot more when it comes to legal teams and things like that. So, I think if general consumers think about AI as just kind of the wild, wild west, it's hard for them to understand how we're doing it strategically. So they seem to be a bit more hesitant to allow us to come to the table with our tech and our ideas. Although, ironically enough, those also tend to be verticals where our campaigns are actually like killing it. So it's a very interesting twofold. They're kind of like, no, scary. But then once we do get in and inundate and let them, kind of lean into our tech, because what we do is very much so, consumer trust based and allowing folks to kind of engage with your content and learn more about your brand. It tends to work well in those verticals. So definitely an interesting, battle from our end, if it is a bit more of a hesitant buy-in.
Also, what's interesting is in healthcare and in finance, I have friends in both industries. And, when you're using AI, you're setting up business rules. So whatever the compliance departments want for a business rule, you could easily add that into the sandbox, the guardrails, so to speak, for AI. And you would think these industries would be happy because they're like, okay, we're protected, we can have it down. And yet they are so used to moving slow, having lots of people sign off, like you said, the legal teams and the different department heads, and everybody has to, have input into it. And with AI, if you just create the sandbox, with the business rules, it should be able to move much quicker. But the industry itself is just not used to that. They're not used to seeing content produced right away that's all finance compliant or all whatever, or healthcare. And yet, of course, you're seeing the biggest impact in your campaigns, because if you build it properly, the guardrails, you're going to be fine. When you're working with your different clients in healthcare and finance, and you're talking about the lift that you guys are seeing in the different campaigns, tell me a little bit more about what's going on and how is that even possible?
So we typically see between 50 to 300% increases in our campaign once that AI tech platform, et cetera, is layered on. And that is both in, as I mentioned, kind of the generative AI portion of it. So, running through a handful of different headlines, images, tying those to different targeting parameters, they're applicable, our different native channels, et cetera. And then alongside that, when it comes to AI decisioning, so helping, buy smarter out in market. So looking at, custom bidding and understanding, okay, this impression just came in and did exactly what we wanted it to. How do we find more of those out in marketplace? So I think, finance and healthcare tend to perform well with what we do because they have that really unique edge and need for consumer brand advocacy. So they need to be, we play heavy in, as I mentioned, the native and content space. Like if you're a credit union, you need to build that trust. If you're a healthcare provider, and somebody is coming in to birth their child or, have hip surgery, like they want a trusted brand. So I think that's why those two verticals play well. But when it comes to just lifts in general, as I mentioned, AI is allowing us to go in and find those KPIs and efficiencies for 50 to 300% growth.
And that reminds me that every time that new technology comes out into the marketplace and different people, either in a B2C or B2B environment, are always hesitant to embrace this new direction of technology, that with AI, it's better to, get your hands involved and kind of learn the differences, because like you said right in the beginning, that finance companies and healthcare companies who are generally so slow moving in all of their decisions are actually seeing some of the biggest impact, and which it excites me because, again, I have friends in finance and I have friends in healthcare, and when I'm sitting around, because I'm kind of geeking out over AI these days, and I really do appreciate you being on our podcast to talk about this, because more and more businesses, no matter small or large, are going to see the value of AI. And I think the theme for today's show is really efficiency, that what you're seeing is it's a streamline of decisions, and it gives you that edge. And also what's really interesting is not everybody's into it yet. So therefore, the early adopters are starting to see a lot more progress than anybody else. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Okay, so I definitely think the word of the day is efficiency. And we use that very often in the line of work we do in our company, because that's really, the bread and butter of how we're buying, how we're executing, you name it. When it comes to efficiencies, we see it both starting at square one and kind of starting the native journey for our partners, the content journey. And then we also see it, we have an opportunity to actually integrate with our partners' DSPs. So what they're already doing out in the programmatic space, you can essentially layer our AI on top of it. So it takes away kind of that whole lift of onboarding a new vendor, trying to figure out like of those segments, which we'd be talking to. Essentially, you can just layer on the smart buying on top of it. So I think, oftentimes when we bring AI to the table and we're a new partner, it's like we have to, it's this heavy lift. And I think that's one thing that AI also brings to the table is it's doing a lot of that heavy lifting for our partners. So that's just a whole other efficiency. When you onboard a new social partner, a new social platform, oftentimes it's like you have to recreate different assets and you have to recreate different campaign parameters and you name it, where our AI kind of does that heavy lifting for our partners, which also just kind of adds that efficiency.
So one of the follow-up questions to that is, for our viewers and listeners right now, what does DSP stand for? Because I don't know if everybody will know that.
Yes. So that is display side platform. And that is where you're buying. So it's different trade desks, different programmatic art. So whether you're buying out in, like the trade desk is one of them, or there's Stack Adapt. It's essentially different inventory sources to be buying your programmatic media.
And just for the layman who don't even know under advertising, so like when you're on like a news website at CNN.com or something like that, and you see the display ads, there's different platforms servicing those ads within these different websites.
Yes, that's right. So it's kind of like this digital ecosystem, and it's a demand side platform, not display side platform. It is where you buy display. So demand side platforms is essentially where you're buying your display advertising. So you're buying through all these different channels. It's kind of this large digital ecosystem where you can go in and say, you want somebody like Chloe who, is a young mom with 2 dogs who owns a home, and essentially it will just have your ad all over in this ecosystem via your demand side platform. So it's how you're buying into those audiences.
Sure. And then they're tracking everything based off of the ISP when they're looking at,
Yes.
the target demographic of how they can service the right product to the right demo is through that
Yes.
technology.
And I think, as an evolution with, cookies going away and the, Safari and Chrome actually kind of nixing those, it's getting interesting in terms of buying. Like you can't buy audiences the way you used to 5-10 years ago. So you also have to think about it from a buying perspective. What kind of tech are you going to lean into if you can't buy people based on their third party attributes?
So I got a personal question for you. So when you're on different websites, do you hit the accept all for the cookies, or do you try to opt out of everything so you don't have ads following you?
I would say I'm kind of a mixed bag. It depends. Although I don't love being retargeting. I used to sell retargeting. So there is, so I'm kind of like, I'm an interesting consumer because I live and breathe it. So I would say mixed bag. Sometimes all in, and sometimes I, pretend that it doesn't exist.
That's funny. For me, I give everybody my data. I really don't care. I feel like it'll be a better experience at the end of the day. I mean, like, who am I hiding from? I
Yeah, exactly.
It's too much time and effort for me. Well, we have a segment that we want to play with you. Actually, it's ChatGPT, who has a great segment. It's called the Fast 5 with AI. And ChatGPT, take it away.
Sure. All right. So the first one is, this is a kind of a personal question as well. What's your favorite way to unwind after a busy day at work? And I know you have sweet little Evelyn, so I'd be curious on this one.
Oh, yes. Sometimes she likes to unwind with me. I love a glass of Pinot Noir, and I am also a very big reader. So we have a screened-in porch. Find me there with my Kindle and a large pour of Pinot Noir.
Nice. Second is, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's a toughie. Mashed potatoes.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. In the spirit of
Midwestern is all get out.
Yes, for sure. I love it. In the spirit of Mother's Day, yesterday, would you trust, okay, this is further down the line here, would you trust a robot nanny to look after your children for a day?
ChatGPT stumping our guest, Chloe, today.
Further down the line, yeah.
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 I agree.
I think it's a first time mom. I'm not 2 claws in.
Yeah.
Probably not for infants, but maybe down, like 7-year-olds to 13-year-olds.
I can tell.
Just in general, watching over, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so do you think AI will significantly impact the way children learn in the future?
I do. And I would say, 3 to 5 years ago, when I knew nothing about AI and I was more of a general consumer, that may have concerned me. But now that I can very much so see, in my own personal career, like the good that it can do for brands and agencies and our partners, I think that will likely only help our children and, the providers in the education space to, do what they need to do more effectively, more efficiently.
Yep, I agree. All right, last one. What's the weirdest content trend you've seen in the past year?
If you say cat videos, I'm going to be upset.
Videos.
I'm trying to think. I probably got to stay more up on my content trends, to be honest with you. I think I get stuck in my algorithm, and then, it's like I see seven things to know as a first-time mom, or how to train your dog not to bark. So I don't think I'm really cutting edge in the content trends, honestly. So that's on me.
I think we need to ask Mr. Content over here that question.
Oh, man.
Fair.
Well, I mean, if you're going to ask me, ChatGPT, I can't believe I'm being interviewed by ChatGPT. This is wild. I would say...
Plot twist.
I know, right?
Exactly.
Plot twist. I would say I feel like 2024 is the year of the revelation, where more and more truths are coming out, and more of all these different like whistleblowers and different things are coming out. And that happens to be mostly probably because it's a political voting year. It's an election year. So I would say that's the biggest trend, but and that's not going to stop anytime soon until the end of the year.
Yep.
But thank you, ChatGPT. That's the first time I've ever actually been asked a question by ChatGPT. That's pretty cool. All right, nice.
That's fun.
Well, thank you for playing our game, Fast Five with AI. But back to our regularly programmed podcast show here. So, a follow-up question that I had from ChatGPT was, when you are just, hanging out in your downtime, what are some different ways that you think that AI will influence your personal life and Evelyn's over the next, few years? What do you see as kind of like the trend going one way or the other with this?
I mean, I think I think we've already seen it in terms of consumption, right? Like, you look at algorithms. I mean, I got married 2 years ago. My TikTok was all first dance songs and DIY wedding decor and you name it. And then we got pregnant, and then it was like all these things to do when you're in your third trimester and your second trimester, and then we had a baby, and then it's all so I think the way in which we are both being delivered content as well as consuming content has already been heavily affected. I think that will continue to grow. I think from, as a parent, I think those resources are continuing to get more and more. As a child, I think that may be similar, right? Whether it's, silly little peekaboo videos, or how they're engaging, in school and how they're learning. I think the whole screen kids thing is not going anywhere. So
Right.
I think, again, it'll just be how they are consuming and how that content is being delivered more efficiently, more effectively. We're constantly being served things smarter based on what we're doing and what we're already consuming.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious that, I'm a big fan of the Netflix show, Black Mirror. And, I feel like things are moving more, like reality is imitating art, and it's starting to move more in that direction. And as we go here in the next, 3 to 5 years, robots have always been around in our lives, my whole life. But now that there's a lack of latency, there isn't as much anymore between the technology and the way you ask or interact with a robot of any kind, that it will be really interesting to see these different robots interact with children. And like, screen time, in my opinion, is going to develop and evolve over time of what that means, because there's no escaping technology anymore. It's just around us. And I have a 4-year-old, and of course we have to monitor his device time quite often, because it's hard to peel away the devices, but it's also good to go play outside and do art projects,
Right.
and stay, glued into the real world, and not so much watching, everything on your phone. But with that said, I feel the evolution of the technology is going more to these bigger and bigger devices that could be your friend, that could really interact with you. And because of AI, like, one thing I learned on the show a couple episodes ago was that AI is used in a lot of different social media capacity, including Snapchat. And I know young people use Snapchat quite often, but could you imagine like if you're flirting with somebody on Snapchat and they set it up where the response is literally the entire AI device? Like it's not even the guy or the girl, it's literally just an AI, and what does that mean for social interaction and social cues? I don't know. But I do feel like that's where the technology is. And as parents, that's where the challenge comes in, is like trying to figure out and navigate, because again, this technology didn't exist, 10, 15 years ago. So we're all learning. Like how we grew up is not exactly how the next generation is, going to your point in the beginning of the show. Talking about that. So
I think it has both positives and negatives. And I think as a, consumer whole, we're just going to need to figure out what those are. Because I think to your point, there's a lot of automated and automation that can be seen as negative, but it's also, some kids don't thrive in a traditional school environment. So then there's opportunities, for them to lean into tech and have different, whether it's automated teachings or automated lessons or whatever that looks like, where they're not forced and holed into this traditional schooling space. They have different outlets and different opportunities, which I think is both maybe intimidating to the consumer but also exciting for those who don't learn well in more of that traditional space.
Oh, absolutely. And even like when you're trying to learn different languages, or you're having challenge with learning math, it will really be interesting how you interact with AI and through these different devices, and how it will help in education, because we all know that everybody learns at a different pace and at a different rate. And I feel like the AI and the technology, again, once like the right psychologists or the right team of people put kind of the guardrails around this, that is a safe environment for everybody for learning, I feel it can be really beneficial. We are wrapping up our time and want to make sure that we squeeze in some more questions. ChatGPT, do you have more questions for Chloe here?
Sure. I always have questions. It's just interesting with AI in children, and just continuing that conversation. The first question is, have you ever used AI-powered apps or devices to help with parenting? I'm sure yes, but what do you use and why? And to this question, do you have worries about what your daughter consumes while on these devices?
I personally use them. She's only 6 months old, so the only thing she wants to do is like eat my phone.
Sure.
But we use the Huckleberry app, which essentially helps track her sleeps and her feedings. And you can upgrade, and it essentially has this nap function called Sweet Spot. So it tracks all of her wake windows, grows them with her as she gets older, sends me a notification 15 minutes before she's ready for a nap, so I can get my shit together, get her down before she gets overly tired. And it is an absolute game changer. It is something I would recommend to any new parent who is learning things about wake windows and overly tired babies, etc. So that is definitely AI driven. It is learning all things about her through the app. And it has been so helpful for me and my husband and I as first-time parents, to kind of help her get in a rhythm and get in a schedule and, track kind of where she's at in terms of her day. So I, again, think these tools are only helpful. They do not scare me. I think my life would be messier without them, and they help us, kind of keep all things on track.
That's awesome. And I love how it's helping you learn about her as well as she's learning on the devices as well. So, and you answered my other questions. So ChatGPT does not have any more questions.
Wow. We covered it all on today's show. We got into what it's like to run different campaigns, the difference between traditional media and AI, the new media. And what I really enjoyed with you, Chloe, is just kind of going through and doing the deep dive on each of these topics so that people can really understand what's behind it and maybe not be so fearful of AI, because like you pointed out on the show, that once you have a better understanding of the technology, you realize that we can embrace this and have maybe a sliver of hope that this is going to be used for good and not always for bad, which is kind of the fear that we read in the different news outlets quite often, or talked about in social media, or even heck around the dinner table. And so I really do appreciate you kind of, lifting up the veil and showing us a little bit more about what's going on, and what companies how they're using it, and not to be fearful that it's going to replace jobs, or fearful that it's not going to be helpful and it's going to use to be harmful. And it's just really not that way. And this is great testament from somebody who's seen both sides at this point. So
yeah, I mean, not to say it again and again and again, but efficiencies. Like, we are finding so many efficiencies when utilizing AI, again, in both the creation, the buying, the optimization, my personal life, and Evelyn's naps. Like, the efficiencies, I think, is what's really exciting about this AI wave.
yeah, I absolutely agree. And if people have any follow-up questions, where can they find you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. Don't follow me on TikTok. I don't post any content at all. LinkedIn is probably the best bet.
Great. And that's Chloe Schmidt. And
Chloe Schmidt. inPowered.ai is my company.
inPowered.ai. So if you want to find more about her company, you can check out the website, or you can find her on LinkedIn and reach out to her with any questions that you have after watching the show on YouTube or listening on Spotify, iHeart, or all your favorite podcast platforms. And so how I like to end the show with every show is to really, I feel like in these troubled times, that it's really important to encourage each of us to love a little bit more and offer a little bit more kindness. And so with that, I always like to find a famous quote to kind of like leave on that positive note. And in this show, I found one that just I feel like is perfect for the show, which is, let's make kindness the norm. All right? So thanks for tuning in and following us and listening to us. And again, another great show on Ask Clever Over Coffee, How AI Built This.